Hey, considering that Kogoro can survive thousands of these without any sort of acute poisoning, I don't see what the big deal is. We open this week with the villains. Okay, this is actually starting to become a bit more of a common prologue than anything involving this show's heroines. Anyway, Gita wanted to go into action this week, which Best tried to turn down, but was outvoted by the rest of the band. And to his credit, he did want to try something different with a piece that, yeah, I legit kind of forgot was a thing, and we haven't even seen the evolved form of yet. The episode proper then featured a bit where we got to see the girls eating their lunches, and in a nice subtle bit of storytelling, we could really read into their personalities through their bento. Minamo's was a bit of a simple, yet very organized hamburger steak meal. Kagori had a very traditional Japanese meal with plenty of veggies and fish. Nagase's was chaotic looking, like she just threw in whatever she wanted into a box, including a couple of different onigiri, a hard-boiled egg, a sausage, and fried chicken. And it was all piled atop some greens. Now, I would have said that was probably the worst looking lunch, but then we got to Nachi, who just had a bunch of store-bought breads. Now, I don't think this is meant to suggest that she is lazy or anything, but more maybe that she's just not as fussy about appearances like the princess, being a bit more of a tomboy herself. Granted, I think at least most people should try to be a step above Nagase. Anyway, while she didn't pay too much attention to her nutritional intake, Nachi did keep up with the latest idol news, and as a result, managed to confirm that the twins from a couple episodes back were doing well, giving the princesses a nice moment to appreciate their accomplishments. It also might have meant to foreshadow something else in the episode, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Though, speaking of foreshadowing, they also seem to hint at further development for Nachi when she had to turn down helping Nagase study for their next exam. Curse you, plot convenient explosions out of nowhere! Seriously, I hope to God that was meant to hint at her starting an arc to become a princess, because along with being a fun character, the influence might encourage her to eat a little better. Anyway, the four checked out the explosion, which turned out to be from this stereotypical nerd character. Shouldn't you be helping out the Akiba Ranger? Yep, this character was played by Mayuchita, making this her second professor character whose surname is a homonym for professor in Japanese. However, rather than trying to break metafictional walls, she just wanted to invent some slightly more practical devices, like arms that had a mind of their own. Yeah, because someone who makes major advancements in tech would totally have a low sub count. I mean, sure, they tried to justify it by saying that the general Alice Spear audience was more into music videos and the like. However, considering this app was basically a third-party YouTube that anyone could download, not just the girls who could go to the Alice Spear, you'd think that she'd get a little bit more of a following, especially when she managed to refine Doc Ock's arms that, for whatever stupid reason, always turned him evil. But yeah, I'll say right now that these things were probably the best part of the episode, just for how expressive they managed to make them. I think the idea was that they were meant to reflect Hakuse's inner self, as she tended to be your typical quiet little science nerd. And yet, in spite of her awesome inventions that could also double as weapons of mass destruction, Hakuse unfortunately did have a bit of a low self-esteem, hence why she probably relied on the extra pair of limbs. And yet, I'd still take her over Ironheart any day of the week. Still, she was at least pursuing her talents in constructive ways, as she was going to use her inventions to help improve other people's performances, which, yeah, basically makes her like a techie Minamo. Later, the princesses held their little study session for Nagase, where we got to see some nice little bits of characterization for them, in particular Kagori's sweets addiction. They also talked about Hakuse a little more. What, you got something against a mic that can also act as a rocket launcher? But yeah, with Navi articulated interest in her, I think they were hinting at Hakuse having a slightly bigger role in the show, which I'm all for, as she's a pretty fun character. However, before that, she had to go through the traditional initiation into the show by becoming a victim of the week. Try saying that again without a huge ass smile of relief on your face there, girl. Also, a bit random, but am I the only one who thinks this girl is cosplaying as Chihiro from Spirited Away? Anyway, sure enough, Gita created the first powered-up knight of the series, which for whatever reason had a Haniwa face on it. Yeah, you know those gyroids from Animal Crossing? They're actually these statues called Haniwa, which were buried with people during the Kofun period of Japan as funeral objects. Bet you kind of regret collecting all of those things now, don't ya? But yeah, as for why this knight had a Haniwa face...
I don't know.
More importantly, it managed to gain Hakuse's robot arms as a part of draining her. As a result, it proved to be a formidable opponent, both for its already inherent good speed, and now its ability to essentially attack 4 times simultaneously. Of course, the solution was to use a Musescent shard, which they had made quite a collection by this point, and considering who they saved a couple weeks ago, the answer should have been kind of clear, but for whatever reason, they just kind of let Nagase luck her way into picking the right one.
Double up!
No continue.
But yeah, this did lead to a fun sequence where the double Nagases managed to effectively dodge and help tie down the knight, and also suggests that somehow they would be able to double up their ability to study. Like, I guess she figures that the copy's knowledge will carry over to her, but yeah, no, I'm with Kaguri on this. Anyway, with that, Nagase finishes it off, and oh wait, I can do one more Kamen Rider reference here. But yeah, they defeated the monster and got Hakuse's shard, which better include some Doc Ock arms. Holy crap, this really was an Akiba Ranger episode. Later, our heroines inform Hakuse that she was saved by some passing through princesses. This ended up giving her inspiration for a new device that she'd show off the next day, which were pink training grips. Yeah, apparently they were supposed to help the wearer gain the refinement and grace of a princess, which considering she had Nachi wear it, maybe this is more of a sign that she's going to join the team eventually? Yeah, probably not, as she quickly tried to pass them on to Nagase, ending the episode with the two participating in a very cartoony chase. This was a pretty fun little episode with a fun little mad scientist. Hakuse and her Doc Ock arms was one of the funnier victims of the week from the show, who I actually want to see a lot more of. Combine that with the Spotlight Princess this week, Nagase, who is pretty much like her polar opposite, and you end up with a fun little chaotic time. One thing I've really come to appreciate from this show is how it tries to give little bits of characterization whenever it can. Thus, even what is technically more of a filler episode like this, we did get subtle bits like the bento scene we mentioned, Kaguri agonizing over what sweet she wanted, or Nagase's smile when the Jamark interrupted their study session. Stuff like that nicely gives us an idea about how these characters think whilst keeping the story flowing nicely. Said story this week was mostly a fun little comedy, mostly thanks to Hakuse being an understated little mad scientist. Again, I'd like to see more of her, which considering how often the show brings back victims of the week, I think that's already a bit of a given. Meanwhile, the fight this week was pretty good, mostly thanks to the double Nagases, who also managed to highlight how unique some of the shards can be. In hindsight, it also ends up making Nachi's shard look really damn basic, but still a good fight with some very unique touches. I'll especially look forward to what Hakuse's shard could do, and overall, this is a pretty good episode with a fun new side character. I dare say there's no one more excited to see more of Hakuse than me.
Not scientifically possible!
Thanks for watching, and if you want some scientific proof that magical girl shows can be quite entertaining, well, I think our videos can help with that thesis. We've got that, plus other kinds of videos coming out almost every day. Look forward to Kamen Rider Gav, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I'm just gonna use a little science to clear out my drains.